Okay, welcome back to another episode of Browns Bites. Please, if you want to support us, like, subscribe, tell a friend, all that good stuff. The Browns now sit 7-5, coming off of the loss to the Los Angeles Rams in what was a weird game. And because we were super smart, we waited to record this until Tuesday because we knew the Jags game would get weird, and weird it did. So, look. There's a lot to talk about with the Browns game. The Rams game was interesting on a lot of fronts. I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had there because so much of the game was unexpected in some ways and then sort of expected in others. But yeah, where are we at now, Bree, sitting here 7-5?
I feel lost, Pete.
All right.
Well, we talked about last week. Really not
here. So Joe Flacco played.
Not having, yes, thank you, Joe. Not having expectations, really going into any games moving forward. And it's so interesting because I can't really predict anything. It's like when we need the offense to perform well, it does. When we need the defense to perform well, it does. But it's like we can't get the two sides to marry in one game and have it both. That's kind of been in my opinion, the definition of the season. It's just been weird. And it continued to get weird on Sunday. And I think it's going to continue to get weirder every week. But as I look around the NFL, it's weird there too. So let's get weird, Pete. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars-Bengals game is sort of the epitome of what you were just talking about. But look, I mean, the score 36-19 looks ugly. I think the game was far closer than the score would suggest. It's 20-19 with the Browns having the ball before, really bad interception and then a snowball effect. I have a lot of opinions that people are probably going to consider strong takes, but they're not intended to be. I think it's more of a trying to sort of educate people on stuff I've been talking about for a while. So to me, let's start on the defensive side of the ball. To me, this was the Joe Woodsiest defensive performance of the season. And
that's exactly what I was thinking driving into work today. This defense was exactly what we got last year and the years prior.
Now, what does that really mean? Well, look, I've never made it. I've always said I've liked Joe Woods. I do like Joe Woods. I think Jim Schwartz is better at his job than Joe Woods. I think Jim Schwartz has been a clear upgrade to Joe Woods. But this is what Joe Woods was working with last year. And what does that mean? The defensive line gave you basically nothing in this game. And my big stat takeaway from this game, and I sent it to Bree as soon as the game was over, 1 tackle for loss.
That actually was the most, in my opinion, the most disappointing thing out of all of this is that you knew, or I guess, is he or isn't he 100%? Myles Garrett's clearly not 100%, but no. Regardless, he played. And it was like he wasn't there. And then you had no one else step up. There was 0 people on the defensive line. I don't even know who played, Pete. I couldn't even name you anyone on the defensive line.
Yeah. So one, credit to the Rams. They did a really good job. Sean McVay did a really good job in terms of the offensive game plan and doing things that really gave the Browns defense problems. Certainly personnel was a factor. Certainly Myles Garrett's shoulder was an issue, but they also did a really good job of trying to make sure that Myles Garrett wasn't going to be an issue. They deserve a ton of credit for that. But to your point, part of the reason this felt like defenses of years past is because if Myles Garrett is on the field, it was academic at that point. And in this game, he was on the field. He actually played a ton of snaps. But it just felt like he wasn't there. And all of a sudden the defense is hapless without him. They cannot function. They have all this talent, and it just didn't perform. And like I said, no sacks, no other tackles for loss other than the one that was made by Khalif Halasi, everybody's favorite, number 1 in your heart, number 25 in your program, number 1 in your heart, who actually is a player I'm intrigued by, undrafted free agent they got from the Chiefs during cutdown day. but they had 2 pass deflection, they had 2 quarterback hits the whole game. Like, and Joe Wood or Jim Schwartz's defense has been predicated on making plays. One of your 3 downs, his goal is to make a play in the backfield, make a big play, and that, if it's early in the series, it puts them at a severe disadvantage, forces them into obvious situations. Late in the series, it may just end the drive. You got none of that, and in fact, what you ended up with. And part of the reason it was a Joe Woodsy defense is it felt like they were desperately trying to prevent plays from happening, which is a perfectly reasonable way to play defense. I mean, ultimately, that's what you're trying to do. But it's not who this team is. And it put them in an awkward situation. And that's why, and this is not to bash Jim Schwartz, although I don't think he did a great job in this game. It's just when we insist on doing this thing where we anoint him as he has not only made the defense better, but has fixed all the other problems we didn't know we had on the team. And we ascribe all these feelings and things to him. So much of this, yes, Jim Schwartz is a really good coach, but that defensive line is so critical to having this. And when you didn't have this in years past, this is what you got. And that's sort of like the thing here. It's really easy to call defense when your defensive line is as dominant as the Browns has been. And it's really difficult when it's not. And one of the things Joe Woods always got criticized for, and I tried to explain this to people, was the Browns ran too many coverages and were too complicated. And what you ran into in this game is the Browns don't run a lot of coverages. And what happened? Matt Stafford figured out real quick what some of those coverages were, like on that 70-yard touchdown to Puka Nacua. He read it immediately. The Browns ran I looked this up to make sure to impress Bree because she already knows. Inverted cover 2, which had the safeties up on the line of scrimmage, ready to blitz for some reason. That was a bad giveaway. But it also asked your corners your outside corners to then drop back and replace those safeties to be your 2 deep guys. Puka Nacua is screaming up the middle of the field before those corners have to get a chance to get there. Sione Takitaki is supposed to be your 3rd guy who drops back and covers the middle of the field. And 1, he's not that fast anyway. But 2, Matt Stafford just made an incredible throw. Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua beat Jim Schwartz on that play. And if you go and look at it, it was an incredible play. Juan Thornhill seemingly had his fingertips on the ball when it goes through. The ball sails barely over Takitaki's back, hits Nacua right in the numbers, and he just runs for it. But that is part of the problem. You're playing a very veteran quarterback and a good head coach, and they can figure this stuff out. So when you don't have that pressure that you're accustomed to, and you are only running so many coverages, it becomes easy to diagnose. And the Rams had 13 possessions in the game. They're going to eventually figure some stuff out. Obviously, this happened early, but you saw it later in the game too. And this in particular was not a great play by Thornhill, but 2nd and 20, the Rams get 2 penalties, and you're sitting there, okay, because they were driving a little bit, and they get these 2 penalties for false starts. And you're feeling pretty good, 2nd and 20. Okay, the Browns can get off the field. Matt Stafford reads what is immediately apparent cover 2. Everybody's killing Mike Ford for doing his job. Juan Thornhill doesn't get a good break, and the ball is out and right in the corner to Demarcus Robinson. Again, it's just beating cover 2 with a cover 2 beater. That is where you sit there and go, well, why did Joe Woods run so many coverages? This is why. Because when you can't get pressure consistently, you resort to having to come up with trickery and everything else to try to keep the quarterback honest, try to fool him and all these things. And as we saw, it only gets you so far, even when Woods was, had some of his best games. But this is the weakness of what we saw from Jim Schwartz in this particular game.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it after passive aggressively calling me out.
Well, listen, I just wanted look. You do your homework.
I don't even remember where I was going with that. Oh, that you had mentioned it. The combination of really good head coach, smart head coach, and veteran quarterback who also has won a Super Bowl before, has been in this league for a very long time, has seen a lot of stuff. Those 2 things combined, obviously a great combination in being able to figure out this Browns defense. So credit to them. And honestly, I know we're going to talk about the flip side, but one would hope with Joe Flacco, also veteran quarterback, Super Bowl winning quarterback, and Kevin Stefanski, they are going to be able to dissect and focus on their upcoming opponents almost in a similar way. I think like that is the benefit. I mean, Matt Stafford and their offense specifically, it worked. They made it look easy. And it was frustrating as a Browns fan to see that. And the other, to me, like big noticeable difference is, and maybe you can bring me back down to earth or say that I'm overreacting, or I don't know, call me stupid, whatever you want to do, whatever our listeners want to do, that's fine. I feel like when I look around the league and I look at the opposing team's offenses, it just seems like their weapons are way more impactful than our offensive weapons. And I know that there are a lot of injuries that are happening right now from a Browns perspective, but regardless of who is quarterbacking our opposing team, it's like they have enough weapons outside of the quarterback to be able to make significant plays. And this is probably a bad example, but I look at what happened in the Bengals game last night, and you have Jake Browning as quarterback, and you still have Jamar Chase being a magnificent impact player and being that guy. And I know we're supposed to be talking about the defense, but I just look at our offense and I'm like, why do we have a bunch of scrubs catching the ball? Like, that's how I feel now. And I hate that I feel that way. Because I don't necessarily believe that they are scrubs. I just don't feel like we have the dude. And it usually has been Amari Cooper, and he's just made some critical drops in pretty big moments as of recent.
Yes, I was going to say Amari Cooper has been the most quarterback resistant player on our team by far, because I mean, he had big games with PJ freaking Walker at quarterback.
Yes.
You know, that would be the extreme.
But I look at like Puka Nacua and I'm like, this guy just like automatically shows up, immediate impact, just like out of nowhere. We don't have that.
True, but he is like the rookie sensation of this year.
I know, but like you think about Jamar Chase, rookie sensation. Like there are just so many guys from so many other teams. Even like I'll give George Pickens props, like for his first couple of years, like he's able to like come in and make those plays. I don't know. I just really struggle with that.
Yeah, well, look, I think there is truth in what you're saying. But like I said, I think we do have examples where you can look at this and go, I think part of this is a product of it's frustrating to lose and it sucks to lose. But even when they were winning, like the Steelers game, not exactly like a dynamic offensive performance. So now you're looking back and you're going, 4 games, really? I mean, I think we saw some stuff in the Broncos game that was positive, but like it's been a while since we've seen some good, like it's been basically the Ravens game was the last time we saw, you know, an impactful offense. And I do think the Browns did some good stuff offensively in this game, especially early. And we got going again in the third quarter. But the thing,
not to go on a tangent, because like I see this argument all the time, especially for people that don't like Kevin Stefanski, but that is what he gets criticism for, is that he's not a feature player type of guy or focusing on one specific offensive player, and he spreads the ball, which like that's totally fine. I feel like in some of these specific instances where we're now on our 4th starting QB, like it would be really nice to have one of those. It'd be really nice to have one.
Yeah, no question. Look, and I think, you know, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, that will be something we're talking about in the offseason, is continuing to work and add and try to find more dynamic playmakers. But, you know, one of the things that we've often criticized has been Elijah Moore on jet sweeps and stuff. I'm starting to think that practicing against the Browns defense gave them a world of false confidence on why this play works so well, because everybody does it to the Browns. And like, there's a problem there. And it's because Jim Schwartz, like we go, oh, it's great. Jim Schwartz gives his defensive lineman freedom. Well, they have freedom, and then they have the freedom to not do like football smart things in key situations where like some of those jet sweeps and guys are crashing because they think they're going to go make a play. And now the guys run right past them. And these are like basic football plays. And like that particular concept is something that the Browns have been victimized, you know, I wouldn't say frequently, but it has popped up here and again where we're sitting there going, why are we giving up explosive plays on this type of stuff? it should be easy cleanup. And one of those, like Juan Thornhill just did not make the play, and they got bailed out on what was a legitimate holding penalty, but it was a stupid holding penalty for the Rams to commit. But like, when you are so unstructured and stuff, and you're basically asking players to sort of use their best judgment, which can also allow them to be like, I'm gonna go make a play, then you miss some of these situations where like outside contain would have been the right play, getting, taking away the upfield. We saw them multiple times where like on one jet sweep, the one that got called back, it was Okoronkwo. He goes right inside, receiver goes right past him. And there was another where Alex Wright goes right inside, receiver goes past him. And you're like, it's great when it works, because you have these guys who are so athletic and so fast, and they get to the quarterback so fast, they don't have time to make those plays. But when you don't, you look awful, and it looks like horrendous defense. And I overall, I don't think the Browns defense was awful. As I described it after the game, I thought it was fine. The problem is the Browns are not in a position where they can win with fine defense. They need to be good on defense, especially even though fine defense, they still theoretically had a chance to win, but a lot of things had to go right. And hopefully that is a little light that says maybe the offense has a chance to get better, because we saw some good things and the ability to compete a little bit. I think both with Flacco and DTR a little bit, that is giving me a little bit of hope that those things can get better, and we can get into what you're talking about, which I think is a good point with the weaponry. But like, what has to happen here is, and look, you're not going to sit here and go, Jim Schwartz is a jackass because they've had a legendary defense for this many games in a row. But clearly we've reached a point where now we have to figure out how to then now adjust and expand to be able to deal with this. Like, you're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and go, oh, now he's a jackass. He doesn't know what he's doing, because clearly they've had unbelievable success to this point. But
what do you mean? That's what we do. People should be calling for his job based on this performance. That is what we do. Maybe
that's true. But I think between these last two games, you sit there and you really see some of the cracks, and you see a veteran coach, two Seans, both who have won Super Bowls, who have been able to figure out how to beat Jim Schwartz's defense. That is troubling in terms of what it means for them. But it's now their challenge is, you have to fix this. Now, having said that, you're hoping, Myles Garrett did not do anything to hurt his shoulder more. He did not do anything to set it back. We don't, I can't say how much healthier he's going to get, but he didn't make it worse. So you'd like to think maybe it'll be, let's say 5% better than it was last week. I would take 5% better than what I saw this past week. Denzel Ward might be ready to come back. Torn labrum funny, but it's one of those things where like, it's really, after the initial injury, there's a couple weeks and then it becomes a pain management thing. It sucks, but like, you can play through it. So he may have a chance to be back. Those would be things that would helpful. But, and I should I should, sort of admit that it's way easier to hide liabilities on offense than defense. Like, because the Browns are doing it on a weekly basis at left tackle and some other things. You can do that and get away with it because you know where you want to dictate the play to go. Defense, it's really hard. And when you have that, if you've got 10 good guys and one bum, the opponent can find a way to, isolate the bum and make you pay for it. So that is a reality. However, Myles Garrett, in whatever capacity he's in, and then without Denzel Ward, is not a green light to completely shit the bed on that side of the ball either. Like, they have to be able to be better at that. And like you said, other guys have to step up. Like, it's certainly helpful that they've got multiple or home games left. They've been night and day better at home, which is bizarre as shit. Most, the old adage is defense travels. It does not in Cleveland. It stays right here. The offense travels better than defense in a way that does not make sense. The splits are undeniable. Defense is way better at home. Certainly that should be helpful. But yeah, they've got, this is the first time this season, and it's 12 games in now, where they've got some, we're not going to get into, they've got some soul searching to do and all this, but they've got some stuff to figure out. Where do they go from here? What is their adjustment to this? Are they going to just continue to be mindlessly aggressive and try to just beat everybody to the point of attack. And they may get away with that against some teams. I bet they can do that against the Bears and win the game. I don't know if they can do that against some of these other teams and win the game, but maybe they can do that against the Bears. So where does that go from here? That's sort of the question for that side of the ball. And again, not awful. The sky is not falling, but fine is not good enough for what the Browns need this season.
No, and especially with just the turmoil that is this Browns offense on a week-to-week basis.
Yes. Now, the offense, which is okay. So
go, Joe, go. I mean, 38
the
years
first
old.
drive, which some people got to see some of, based on whatever Fox was doing.
Yeah, that was really, everyone was in a full-on panic.
Yes. They go right down the field. He's 3 of 4, has a pair of explosive passes, and they completely get the Rams defense on the wrong side of the field, and they on that throwback to Jerome Ford, and it was easy. And again, not a hot take in terms of what I'm trying to get. It felt like Jacoby Brissett was playing quarterback for this team. And not just because he's a guy who works from the pocket. He's a big guy with a strong arm and he's accurate. But in terms of the plays they were running, in terms of the concepts where Joe Flacco is super comfortable, just happened to be the same plays where Jacoby Brissett was super comfortable. What did you see? Under center, turning the back to the defense on play action. Those things that we saw Jacoby Brissett doing week in and week out. And not only that, they scored on the opening drive, which was a staple of the 2022 season. It was weird. 2022, the Browns would score points early, and then it was they would languish in the second half, and the defense would get crushed, and everybody would get mad at the defense because the Browns would score a bunch of points in the first half and then not score anything else. Everybody said, the defense blew the game because the offense just wasn't able to finish. This year, it's been the opposite. They can't play dead to start the game, and then they get enough opportunities, they get enough chances, they do really well at the end of halves and the end of games, and they cobble together enough points to win. So this was only the second time, I believe, this season where the Browns came out and scored on their opening drive. Or at least, let's put it this way. The last time they did it was against the Indianapolis Colts, where Jerome Ford ran for a 69-yard touchdown on the first drive of the game. Since then, I mean, they had scored on the second drive against the Broncos, but like the Browns, we
like to be in a hole first. That's just where we feel more comfortable, Pete. Okay, we don't like to be ahead.
They got the second drive touchdown against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and everybody's feeling really good about themselves on that one. And obviously, that was enough. But like, it was people were ready to build a statue for Joe Flacco at 7-0. They were. Oh, it was on.
Yes, I felt oddly calm in that first series, just all together. And I think we have to remind ourselves too, what he had been in the building for how long?
Basically 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right? And DTR goes into concussion protocol. It still seemed, Mom who was going to start, although I feel like everyone knew it was going to be Joe Flacco.
Yep.
But I have to say, with all of the weird situations that are happening in the league with quarterbacks and backups and all of the injuries, I feel very fortunate that the Browns were able to get Joe Flacco at this point and have someone who, again, has just been in the league for a very long time. He's seen a lot of things. He's very smart. And I don't know, having him at quarterback, and have to give him a ton of credit, like only being in the building for 2 weeks and putting that performance on paper. Like, yeah, sure, there were some bad moments and the interception and that decision, but like at the end of the day, he also made some really good throws. Like, I don't know, Pete, about you, but like I was seeing comments circulating on X, I guess, about how people have never seen.
Don't call it that.
I know, I hate it, right? It's Twitter. It's always going to be Twitter.
Yes.
People were like, I've never seen throws like this from a Browns quarterback. And I'm like, well, okay. But like, we also paid $235 million for a quarterback to do those types of things. So it was just so comical that we were just like right back there with like, okay, people are going to start buying his jerseys in a matter of time. That's what's going to happen.
That particularly the opening script, the plays he had obviously practiced the most.
Yeah.
he looked good, and he did throw a couple
Yeah.
balls. You're just
But
like, wow.
imagine what this could look like with just more time.
Yeah,
and more reps.
So that's the interesting question. On the one hand, you sit there and go, okay, he's been here 2 weeks. Maybe what does it look like in 3 weeks or 4 weeks? And there's part of you that goes, oh, maybe he can get better.
Like I can talk myself into it, Pete. Like I'm there. Like I can really talk myself into it.
Meanwhile, there's part of me that goes, he's 38 years old. Is this also, maybe this is it? Like this is the best it's going to be. And maybe it doesn't get better. Maybe this is where it stays. There's also the possibility maybe it drops off a little bit. Hard to say. But what I can say is there's certain things that make you feel really comfortable with Joe Flacco. And part of the reason I think people are very easy to talk themselves into, it's a no-brainer that he should be the starter from here on out. One, it's his demeanor. It's never too big for him. It looks easy. He almost looks bored at times. And there were times where, yes, to your point, this was his 81st career start in the NFL. And there were throws where he diagnoses it and the ball's in the window. And a couple of times the receiver was not quite ready for it because it was on time that quick. But thankfully they caught it. The other part is he does throw the ball hard, but he also throws a catchable ball. Now we did see a couple drops. Amari Cooper had the drop that also ended up with a head injury, which is not ideal, but like he throws a catchable football. Part of that is because he has a very a good tempo and sort of a very predictable motion and timing, which is good. That's what you want. I think we look at DTR, he's got to get there on some of those things. I think it's a little sporadic at points, which isn't an excuse for the drops, but I think it helps to explain why they are where they are. Also, DTR is going to get a little bit better on his ball placement. Joe Flacco is very predictable for the most part on where the ball is going, in terms of not just like who it's going to, but I mean where the ball is going to end up. And a couple of those throws, they look like long handoffs. Like the receiver couldn't help but catch the football. So that stuff was really good. He did force a couple balls that were into traffic even early in the game. There was, he threw one in between 3 defenders that he got away with. And there were a couple other things, and you sit there and go, yeah, whatever. They didn't get punished for it, obviously, until later. That is where you would hope, to your point, that with more time, he's going to get better, feel more comfortable, develop that chemistry. And these are all reasons you can, like you said, talk yourself into why this can work. I do have some small concerns with what I saw at the end of the game. The offensive protection did a really good job in pass pro this week. Again, it's a lot of time. It's easier with Joe Flacco. He's not going to run off. He's not going to go get lost. You know exactly where he's going to be. That's always helpful. Now, I do think a lot of people will describe it as a statue. I think he's more nimble than people realize. He's got really good balance. My comparison is Matt Ryan, who would fall down if he tried to run anywhere Joe Flacco tried. Just would fall down, has no balance. But Joe Flacco is a very good athlete. He ran like a 6'8" 3-cone coming out of Delaware at 6'6", 240, which is just like an elite defensive end. So he's a very gifted athlete. Even if he's lost a couple steps, his balance is very good. And we saw him do a couple good things where he rolled out. Like we're an inch away from that Njoku play being just phenomenal, which in so many ways is just Njoku's career. Like I love David Njoku in so many ways, and I want it so bad for him. And there's always an inch. There's always that inch where we're an inch away from being. It
feels like that's the way it's going to go.
Yes.
And it's what it's going to be. Like every year, it's like he's going to have a breakout year.
What's funny to me is like, and I mentioned this like in the OBR chat watching the game. To me, Trevor Lawrence is the David Njoku of quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is incredibly gifted, does some spectacular things, and yet you're always sort of like, I wish he did a little bit more. I think that's what David Njoku is in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And again, he may still figure it out. I root for him. I love what he brings to this team. Very frustrating. To your point about, the offensive weapons being able to deliver the way, Ja'Marr Chase.
Well,
and some of these
one final thought about Joe. I'm actually excited to see what him and Kevin can do if he is the starter moving forward, which feels like he's going to be. I feel like he's going to be.
Well, one, as we sit here and record right this second, DTR is still in the protocol, so that makes it easy for the moment.
Yeah.
I fully expect that Flacco is going to start this week. I'm not as over the moon with him as a lot of people are. For the reasons I talked at the end of the game, one, the interception was horrific. He predetermined he was going to throw it, took multiple hitches, and then just chucked it into an arm punt. He didn't need to. It was 20-19. God forbid they actually make the extra point. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then, and granted, look, the game had gotten out of hand, but he looked every bit of 38 years old and maybe older on those 2 sacks where he looked very helpless and he looked like he was getting shoved up the back of the end zone.
Okay, but like also why is it that like when we're in situations like that, our offensive line also just appears to just pave a runway? Here, please go tackle the quarterback. Let's just make this easy on you.
Right. So that gives me a little pause. The flip side of that is, like, I know he got hurt and I know he had a little bit slow go against the Broncos, but I was really happy with what I saw from DTR going with that Broncos game where they suddenly had the game rolling. They get the field goal at the end of the half. They get the touchdown quickly in the third quarter. They score another field goal in the third quarter. It felt like they were rolling, and then he gets whacked and knocked out of the game. And I think if you're making the argument for DTR, it's not necessarily about is he the best guy for Jacksonville? It's is he the best guy over the course of 5 games? I think Flacco is the best guy against Jacksonville, in part because I think the forecast is suggesting something like 20-mile-per-hour winds. I'm
just nervous about DTR specifically without the reps. Like, I think he needs all the reps he can get, and now he's been in concussion protocol, and then that's what you have to worry about. I mean, it's like the ideal scenario is if we could combine the 2 of them together and make a complete quarterback.
I am 100% with you. I think the flow of things also makes it easier for to stick with Flacco. And the other part is, like I said, I think Kevin Stefanski found a quick and easy comfort level with Joe Flacco for the reason I talked about. It felt like Jacoby Brissett was playing quarterback again. And look, Jacoby Brissett was miserable at closing games and made some painful mistakes, but like they were a competent offense that was able to move the ball quite a bit. Certainly.
Yeah, this feels like a situation that Kevin Stefanski would love to have.
Yes.
This is a perfect marriage.
Yes. Now, not having Nick Chubb changes that. Now, it also raises some questions about, like, yes, this is great, but we've also, you look ahead to 2024, you got to figure this out with Deshaun Watson and make this work, because this was easy. It disturbingly easy in a way that it hasn't been for Watson. And I think Watson showed that he had gotten better before he broke his shoulder, but like, they've got to figure out how to meet Deshaun where he is and make the things Deshaun do well work consistently out of the offense Kevin Stefanski wants to do it. Deshaun Watson has not done very well out of the under center stuff and some of the turn your back play action type things. That's great with Flacco, but like, you have to make that, we have to find a way to make that look as easy to work with Deshaun as it has been with Flacco in 2 weeks. That is my big question, like, coming out of this going forward. Like, there are so many things where I think Kevin Stefanski has done a fantastic job, not the least of which is now putting together a competitive enough offense on your 4th different quarterback. But that thing is still hanging out there. And certainly a lot of that is on Deshaun and some of the things he's done. But that's sort of the big thing that's got to get better. But yes, Joe Flacco in so many ways is easy. He's comfortable. The weather is going to be a factor. There's so many ways that I think that it becomes a good marriage for the time being. And the players rallied around him. And the one thing we saw in this was, and some of this was because of Amari's injury, we suddenly saw Elijah Moore look like the guy we wanted. And getting to run and attack downfield, they had to move him to X because Cooper was out. And like, that was great. And suddenly Elijah Moore's catching the ball downfield, a better throw, and he scores, making plays all over, some toe touch stuff. His routes, he gets wide ass open. That's like the thing, like all these people are like, oh, Elijah Moore's so disappointing. He has been doing this all year. He gets open. They just got to get the ball. And like, that's where it comes back to your point about like, well, the Browns don't have that Jamar Chase type element or, Puka Nacua or whoever, you can cite anybody. But part of that has been just the quarterback dysfunction has been such a headache that, like, even when guys are open, they're not getting the ball, and you're sitting there, like, you'll watch stuff and you'll be just like, it's there if they just make it happen. And it's sort of like, in some ways, is cheating Elijah Moore. Like, look, there's no getting around the fact that given the amount of hype coming into the season, the media did him no favors. He was going to change the world. That it's been a massive disappointment. But I can also say, like, I look at him and I'm really excited about what he's able to do. I just want to see more of it.
I agree. Elijah Moore, I've been a huge supporter of and want to see him be unlocked in this offense a bit more. And I think with the Amari Cooper injury, we're going to get that. And whether or not him and Joe Flacco had chemistry from being on the Jets together, I'm fine with it. But I'm fine with it. I love to see him getting more involved. When you look at the wide receiver room now, it is Elijah Moore. It is Cedric Tillman, rookie, David Bell, who has really not really been involved in terms of being a pass catcher necessarily, but he's there. He's playing snaps. Mm-hmm. And who am I forgetting?
Marquise Goodwin has been out for a while with the concussion.
That's right.
Unfortunately. I'm trying to think who else they have.
But no one really playing notable snaps. I mean, it's really been like David Njoku, Harrison Bryant from a tight end perspective being the additional pass catchers. You know who I want to see get more involved? Pierre Strong. I want to see him more. I feel like every time he comes in, he has a spark. He's quick. He's dodgy. I don't understand. I thought for sure 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I don't remember when it was, that we were going to see a lot more of him. Mm-hmm. And we just haven't.
Yeah. So I would also like to see Pierre Strong, particularly. I'd like to see a little bit less of Kareem Hunt, though he was like, again, I think the run blocking was really poor in the first half. I think the Rams were just quicker than the Browns in a lot of situations where they just beat them. Kareem Hunt, to his credit, got going in the second half and got his average to about 4 yards a carry after being like 1 yard per carry early. But I do think Pierre Strong should get a few more reps. Now, the problem you run into and the problem he's not in a ton of snaps for is he doesn't pass block very well, and he doesn't do enough of those other things that you want to be able to trust him to do. Having said that, throw him the ball. He can do that, or, give him the ball and let him run it. The other thing that stands out with him is I just complimented Joe Flacco's balance. Pierre Strong falls down so quick. It's like he's so fast and his body is just flying around so fast. Like, 20-mile-per-hour wind may make a tackle on him on Sunday. He's so off balance. But the thing is, like he should have scored on that one run. It was beautifully blocked, and he slipped on a guy's foot. But like that's one where you think it's a touchdown. But nevertheless, you got 13 yards. Clearly, there's something there that you can say, if we can get him the ball more, they got to find the right mix of what he is. And I'm not going to say it's like a Jaylen Warren situation, but I'm saying that's sort of, if I put that into your head, or Keaton Mitchell, you can sort of have an image of what you're sort of like frustrated with, but sort of trying to find what's the sweet spot for him. It's not going to be 15 touches a game. It's not going to be 10 touches a game, but it might need to be 5. It might need to be more than the 1 or whatever he's getting right now. Harrison Bryant played well in this game. He's been playing well this month. Certainly he's going to get crap because of the snap malfunction last week, but he's been doing some good things. He had touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. And some of that, again, just being competent at quarterback is allowing guys to look better. It's that tide that lifts all boats. It just is. Joe Flacco looking competent. 9 guys touched the ball, catching passes. Like, you want to see that. And Jerome Ford, I wish he was more consistent, but he's not getting a lot of help on some of these. Like, some of these run plays are just dead, but then he will make some of these plays. He will make a run for 10 yards. He will make a touchdown catch for 24 yards. He can do some of these things. You're sort of excited about him. I like what I see from Cedric Tillman, even if it's, small amounts. Here's my thing with David Bell. I didn't like the pick when it was made, not because he's not a good football player. He does exactly what the Browns ask him to do every time. And when they throw him the ball, he catches it. He blocks when they ask him to block. He is the ultimate coach's dream in terms of just doing everything you want him to do. He's just not a great athlete. He's just not a dynamic playmaker. And it sort of caps what he can be. He may just be simply a jag that, like, that's why you don't like him as a third round pick, but you like him as a guy who's on your football team. But at the same time, to your point, we need dynamic playmakers. David Bell is not that. Maybe he's a solid guy who gets a little bit better and, catches a couple key passes and converts first downs and does some things like that. But he's not going to, I don't envision a world where he's catching 50 balls in a season. And
and I was going to say, like, this actually feels like the time where DPJ would have thrived.
He'd be
better. And I get it. Like, they weren't going to pay him, but he kind of always was able to step up and be reliable when it came to catching passes from multiple different quarterbacks. I felt like and I'm not saying he was the impact player that I'm talking about necessarily, but in this situation specifically that the Browns are in, he's been in it before. Yeah. And so to have someone like that, I do feel like he would probably be helpful in this moment.
Yeah. And I hated the return on that trade. The Lions don't use him either. Like,
yeah,
he has no catches. He's been targeted twice in Detroit.
It's weird.
So yeah, it's sort of a weird dynamic, but that's the thing. Like, I hate the fact that you only get a 6th round pick. I really like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I want him to succeed. And then sort of like, well, I guess it's nice to have the 6th round pick since nobody's using him. But it does point a glaring thing, a big sign that says they need more. I think the Browns receivers are better than we are seeing, but to your point, they need more dudes. They need dudes. Amari Cooper is a dude. David Njoku is borderline a dude. And in certain games, he has been. Elijah Moore's not there yet. I think he can get there. They need another dude. And that's going to be a smart play because eventually Amari Cooper's not going to be here. Elijah Moore is going to be in his last year of his contract next year. Like, it's going to be a thing. And I know I will try to keep the draft talk at a minimum because I know you're super excited. I don't want to get you too worked up, but I think that's the position you and I are going to be talking about for most of the offseason. We're going to be like, they need more wide receiver help, and that's going to be the thing they have to get early in the draft for that exact reason. They just need to continue to invest in that position and make it better. But, given where they're at, as I say all that, given what I've seen from Joe Flacco this game and a little bit DTR before, I certainly feel the best about what this offense can achieve since Deshaun Watson went out. Now, that is also contingent on the fact that Amari Cooper is not out for a while. You have no idea what his status is going to be. I would assume he won't play against Jacksonville. That's just going to be my gut reaction based on that's just how these things work. But I nevertheless feel more positive about the direction the passing game is going right now than I have in a few weeks. And I think between Joe Flacco, that gives the Browns a little bit more room for error, which one can give a little bit more breathing room for a defense that needs to figure it out. But hey, if the defense plays like it can at home, suddenly I feel very good about the Browns' chances, not only this week, but in these coming weeks. Since, they're 7-5, we still feel good about the fact that they've just got to get to 10 wins to make the postseason. They still have very winnable games. And if these positive things can keep continuing, then we're going to be in a pretty good spot, which brings up the Jacksonville Jaguars Cincinnati Bengals game, which was bizarre on multiple fronts. I'm curious your reaction. I don't know how much of that you watched. I'm curious your reaction between the Bengals not only winning, how they won, and then sort of the fallout.
I was not home for the first half, and I got home and watched a little bit of the third quarter, and then I was so tired I fell asleep. So I did not I did not see the ending of the game, but I did see obviously you know what happened? I fell asleep right as Trevor Lawrence got injured. And so like I woke up to hearing the injury and then I just passed out again. But at that point, getting home at halftime, I was actually shocked at the score of the game. And then the third quarter, there was more scoring. My biggest question mark moving forward is I think the defense, which I can't believe I'm saying. I know that like the offense to me is what it is. I don't know that I'm expecting them to be this huge, explosive, score a lot of points offense. We're going to get what we get from them. And I think we have to be happy with that. The defense is where I'm really like, I don't know what to expect anymore out of them.
Yeah, look, over the course of Kevin Stefanski's tenure, I think only 2021 was the year where you sort of had a weirdly volatile, inconsistent offense. Every other year, you sort of like 2020, no, they're good. They're good. 2022, you're like, they're pretty good. Even though we all thought they were going to stink, they're pretty good. And then this year, they're not good, but we sort of know that if you give them enough time and you keep them in it, they have a chance to win at the end of the game, which, you know, on some level is ultimately all you can ask for in the NFL, but certainly given the circumstances. So watching this game, one, Browning was at first allowed to throw the ball a foot for like the first series, maybe first two series. Like they literally allowed him to throw the ball a yard. And then all of a sudden he opens it up and he just starts throwing the ball over the field. And one, I give him a ton of credit. He did a great job. But I was also sitting there going, is this the best that Jags defense can do? They looked soft. They looked out of position in a lot of crazy plays. And yes, the Bengals have some very nice receiving talent, but Joe Mixon ran them over. The offensive line mauled them. And they were at home in it with an opportunity to, you know, have a good shot at the 1 seed. Like it wasn't a sort of nothing game for them. This was a big deal on primetime, no less. And they looked awful. And maybe they'll play better against the Browns. But if that's all they have to offer, I'm sitting there going, okay, Browns are probably in good shape. And then, you know, Christian Kirk immediately goes down in the first quarter. He awkwardly caught that ball. He hurts his groin. They've already declared him out. They called it a core muscle injury, which, you know, that's what Amari Cooper had last year. Impossible to know if it's the same thing, but like that stuck with him the rest of the year. Trevor Lawrence and the left tackle got hurt on the same play. In fact, the left tackle hurt his hamstring, which led to him stepping on Trevor Lawrence's ankle. And then Trevor Lawrence's body then falls on it and folds over onto himself on the ankle. And you're just like, what the hell? All for a high ankle sprain, which has to be the best case scenario. Though I have to question the Jaguars training staff that decided to have him walk it off for about a quarter mile as they did not feel like getting a cart for him. And it seems like his training room was across town. So all of a sudden, now that's a big question mark. Walker Little, the left tackle, has a hamstring injury. Now he's a question mark. They're going to be Trey Herndon, one of their corners, is in concussion protocol. Like this was the Broncos game in just like, you know, for the Jaguars, where you just all of a sudden all your players are falling down dead and you have no idea what to do. So the Jaguars could be without their top receiver. Christian Kirk is a problem. They could be without their quarterback, which means CJ Beathard could be in there. And all of a sudden this game looks like, I don't want to say easy because the Browns do not have that luxury anymore. But all of a sudden you're sitting there going, okay. And I even before that, I felt like, given how poorly the Bengals defense was playing, I at least felt like, okay, maybe they can do something. The Browns have been a different team at home. They're 5-1 in Cleveland, that they can do that. And all of a sudden it's like, now they have a major opportunity in a game where, like, if they can win this game, they've still got now the resurgent Bengals offense led by Browning that at the end of the year. The Jets have all but quit. They still got to play the Bears. That Texans game is going to be difficult. But like, that's it. That's the season. And you have to feel at least okay about this sitting here as where we are right now.
It also looks like Sunday could possibly be a rainy day.
Windy, all that.
Yeah.
So who knows how Jacksonville is going to be coming into that. They may not love that either.
Right.
But at the same time, if it's just running the ball endlessly, I know Cleveland fans will love it, but I don't know if the Browns will. But it'll make for an interesting game. Having said that, Joe Flacco has played plenty of games in the AFC North, has that big arm, has big hands and a good grip. That could be an advantage. So all of a sudden, like, on the one hand, like, to your point on the overall point of this team, you have no idea what to expect. On the other hand, all of a sudden, this game looks like a possibility where the Browns can get back on track, get to 8-5, and feel pretty good about themselves.
And I will just say, to wrap up this conversation, I'm not rooting for anyone to be injured in this league from other teams. Like, I don't want people to get injured. That's not what I'm rooting for. However,
that Lawrence injury was scary.
Yeah. However, like, once again, I'm not going to sit here and feel bad that the Browns may not have to face Trevor Lawrence because we are on our fourth quarterback. It is what it is. You play who's in front of you. The Browns have numerous injuries that they've been impacted by all season, and we've had to deal with it. And so it is what it is. But I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for Jaguars fans for them having to trot out a backup quarterback to play the Browns. Sorry,
if that's even what they have to do. I mean,
right. Who knows? He could start. He could play injured or play not 100%. Again, we've had to witness that as Browns fans for our own team this entire season.
Yeah, I mean, here again, I say this all the time. Season's too long. It's too long. I think, what are we up to? A quarter of the NFL teams have lost their starter at this point this year. Some ridiculous number.
It's wild. Like, the Browns bye week feels like centuries ago.
Yes. And they get no break. I mean, they
zero.
They've got to roll into that Thursday night game of the Jets, and then they get the mini bye, to rest up for the Bengals and then the playoffs, at the perfect time. And then, of course, everybody will be back.
Yes.
Everybody will be back, and then they'll be ready to roll and win the Super Bowl, because that's how that's going to work. So
I actually hate that there's like a game like the first week of January, like a regular season game. Like, it's just so weird. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, we sit here, it's December 5th, and you're like, the season should be about over, right? And you're like, nope, plenty of season to go. 5 more games. All right. So look, as always, the game is an opportunity. I'll steal that from what Kevin Stefanski's ultimately guaranteed going to say when he starts previewing these teams and what he says every week. He's right, though. Given where the Browns are at and given who they have, every game is an opportunity. And even though the Browns lost both those road games and they've lost some of their wiggle room, they still control their own destiny. If they get to 10, they'll be fine. They could do better than that, but if they get to 10, they'll be in good shape, should make the postseason, which I just can't underscore enough would be a real achievement given what we've seen from this team, and a testament to what everything they've done, which would be really good and certainly validate everything they've sacrificed. It would obviously suck if the uncontrollable element of this season sort of sunk them, given everything they've put into this. I think they are too good to allow that to happen. I think they have the right mindset and everything else. But we shall see what happens on Sunday, potentially another ugly weather game. Another opportunity for the Browns defense to shine, especially with the home crowd where they've thrived. The Browns have been great at home. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully they get a win, and we'll be back next week. And no threats of not being here. So we should have 2 hosts next week, no matter what, which is always a good sign.